A Mortal's Journey to Immortality episode 267. In the previous episode, the tense standoff between the Heavenly South and the Moulan forces reached its breaking point. After threats, bargaining, and a partial release of prisoners, both sides finally agreed to resolve the deadlock through deadly wagered battles. Spell formation masters from each army rushed to build powerful barriers, sealing the battlegrounds where the clashes would unfold. Amid these preparations, Han Li sensed something deeply wrong about the devil cultivators sent forward by the enemy. Their demonic energy surged wildly, as if fueled by a dangerous and unstable force. Still, he stepped calmly into the glowing barrier, exchanged the wager with his opponent, and readied his divine Devilbane lightning for a swift and decisive strike. At the end of the previous episode, as the milky white barrier sealed shut around them, Han Li greeted his foe with a faint chuckle, and unleashed a blow powerful enough to shake the battlefield. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. When the black-robed man saw the light barrier appear around them, he put his hands together in an incantation gesture and began to utter an ancient and obscure incantation. His entire body released a sinister devil-like energy that twisted into a long, inky tentacle writhing through the air. Han Li narrowed his eyes, instantly sensing danger. Soft rumbles of thunder whispered from within his sleeve, accompanied by a faint glimmer of golden lightning. Han Li had once slain a devil cultivator of similar strength in a single instant. If this man dared to attack, Han Li was confident he could end the fight just as quickly. But everything changed in the next heartbeat. The black-robed man's eyes suddenly burned scarlet, and a wild, animalistic roar erupted from deep within his throat. The devil-like energy clinging to his body abruptly vanished, yet it had not dissipated. Instead, it surged outward, swelling until it doubled in size in the blink of an eye. Han Li let out a brief, startled sound, not because of the transformation itself, but because the man's spiritual aura had shifted into something completely unstable, twisted, and unnatural. The man's body compressed, shrinking down into a 3-foot-tall, distorted dwarf. Then, with terrifying speed, he shot backward toward the barrier like a blurred shadow. A wave of dread washed across Han Li's mind. Something was terribly wrong. Reacting instantly, he raised his hand and released 2 thick bolts of golden lightning. The 2 arcs connected and expanded into a massive lightning net, spreading across the air to intercept the fleeing figure. At the same time, he flicked his sleeve and summoned a small blue shield. It expanded into a sturdy barrier in front of him, and with his other hand he pulled out the restriction-breaking bead from his storage pouch. If the situation spiraled out of control, he would not hesitate to break through the barrier and escape. As these thoughts raced through his mind, the lightning net caught the black-robed man. A sharp, miserable shriek tore through the air. Then, without warning, the man's body burst apart. Not with the force of a cultivator's self-detonation, but like a fragile balloon popping. A spray of flesh and blood splattered against the surrounding light barrier. Han Li blinked in astonishment. That explosion had no power behind it at all. It was as if the man had simply collapsed into gore. But the shock only deepened as Han Li noticed the next detail. The shredded flesh clung to the barrier instead of falling to the ground. And worse, every piece of it began to twitch and squirm. Before he could fully react, the pieces of flesh burst apart again with soft popping sounds, dissolving into thick crimson mist. The mist rapidly spread across the entire light barrier, dyeing it blood red. In only an instant, the faint fragrance of iron filled the air, sharp and overwhelming. Alarmed, Han Li hurled the restriction-breaking bead straight at the barrier. A loud crack echoed as black light burst from the point of impact. The barrier shook violently, and rays of flickering light spread across its surface. Han Li felt a wave of relief. He immediately launched several shots of azure light at the weakened spot, hoping to force it open before the crimson mist could interfere. But he was a moment too slow. A sudden flash of red swept across his gaze. The crimson mist rushed toward the damaged area, sealing over it and restoring the barrier. Han Li's heart sank. When he looked around, he realized the entire barrier had transformed. Not a single trace of the original spell formation remained. The wall now churned with thick red fog, Drops of liquid blood formed and slid along its surface, giving off an increasingly nauseating scent. Han Li shot a thick golden bolt of lightning directly at the crimson wall. The lightning tore through the mist, scattering it for a breath, but immediately afterward, the blood fog reformed as though nothing had happened. His expression hardened. He dismissed the idea of releasing his bamboo cloud swarm swords. Clearly, he was trapped inside a powerful killing technique designed specifically to isolate nascent soul cultivators. And elsewhere, the same nightmare unfolded. Across all 10 wagered battle sites, identical self-detonations erupted, turning every barrier deep red. 10 Heavenly South cultivators were sealed inside these blood-soaked cages with no way to break free. Outside, the 10 core formation cultivators controlling the spell formation paled at the sight. They immediately attempted to halt the formation, but before they could act, the opposing spell warriors retreated straight back to their army lines with eerie calm, as if they had been waiting for this moment. Panic rippled among the Heavenly South cultivators. Something was terribly wrong. When they finally dissolved the original spell formation, a new layer of thick crimson mist condensed in its place, wrapping each battlefield in an impenetrable blood barrier. It was as though the blood of countless beings had formed a living wall. High above, Master Sunreach and the other 2 great cultivators saw everything. Their expressions darkened as they descended in streaks of light. Once Master Sunreach reached the barrier, he examined it closely, his voice low and grim. "Retreat. This is not something you can handle." The core formation cultivators immediately withdrew, though not without fear. Cultivator Song cast one last worried look toward Han Li's blood prison before leaving. On the enemy side, the shriveled old man and his fellow spell warriors grew visibly excited. Their expressions remained calm, but their eyes glittered with triumph. Behind them stood a black-robed figure, Sect Master Fang. The shriveled old man addressed him with a triumphant smile. "Sect Master Fang, it is a success. If this bloodcatching barrier can hold those 10 nascent soul cultivators for half a day, the Heavenly South will lose a great portion of its strength. This will allow us to strike a devastating blow." The black-robed sect master smirked coldly. He spoke with absolute confidence. "There is nothing to fear. The bloodcatching barrier is one of my sect's 6 supreme grand techniques. Each blood corpse used today was nurtured for 100 years and enhanced with a devil spirit pill. I personally infused them with a thread of my spiritual sense so their true nature remained hidden. Even those late-stage nascent soul cultivators will not break the barrier quickly. And we will not give them the chance." As if to verify his claim, Master Sunreach unleashed a brilliant slash of sword energy. It crashed into the barrier, sending ripples across its surface. But after a mere breath, the blood wall stabilized again, completely unharmed. Wei Wuya and Devil Concord knew immediately, this barrier was not meant to kill, but to trap and isolate, and it had succeeded perfectly. The 3 great cultivators exchanged bitter glances. They had believed the wagered battles would cripple the Moulan forces. Instead, the Moulan had sprung a flawless trap and sealed away 10 of their strongest fighters. Wei Wuya asked solemnly, "Brother Yi, what kind of devil technique is this? Do the 6 Devil Dao sects possess anything similar? Those people self-detonated to use it. It is unbelievable." Devil Concord frowned. "This is my first time seeing such a strange secret art. It seems the Jin Empire's cultivators are more dangerous than we thought." But they had no time to dwell on their anger. The Moulan armies were already moving. Drumbeats thundered across the battlefield. Spell warriors rose into the sky in massive formations, while those on the ground chanted incantations, preparing their assault. Master Sunreach spoke quietly, as if trying to steady the hearts of those around him. "Though we suffered a heavy loss, they are only trapped, not dead. If they can endure, they may still escape. And we still have more high-ranked cultivators overall, even reduced by 10. Our side is not helpless." These words were meant for comfort, nothing more. Devil Concord stepped forward, eyes sharp and filled with violent intent. "We do not need to oversee the entire battle. We only need to deal with the 3 Moulan divine sages." He raised his head, his voice exploding outward with overwhelming force. "I have long heard of your 3 divine sages and their profound spirit techniques. Come out and face me." His shout shook the air for several kilometers. Incantations on both sides faltered. Some spell warriors even lost their balance mid-air, those with weaker cultivation dropped abruptly from the sky. Even a few of the spell warriors in the air swayed. Those with weaker cultivation had also momentarily fallen from the sky. In this episode, we saw how the Moulan forces launched a hidden and deadly strategy. Turning the wagered battles into a trap, the black-robed spell warriors sacrificed themselves to activate the Bloodcatching Barrier, sealing Han Li and the other Heavenly South Nascent Soul cultivators inside impenetrable prisons of blood. Even Master Sunreach, Wei Wuya, and Devil Concord could not break through the barrier quickly, forcing them to face the grim reality that their strength had been cut down at the worst possible moment. As the Moulan armies began their full assault, Devil Concord stepped forward to challenge the three divine sages, signaling the beginning of an even larger and more dangerous confrontation. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Immortal's Journey to Immortality. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications about the newest episodes in Han Li's journey. Thank you for watching, and see you again in the next video.